Okay, everybody, welcome back. Let's jump in with ChaosReader. So now with ChaosReader, just like we had talked about before, the beauty of this is you've already done your first step. You've gotten an idea of what kinds of hosts are on the network, right? Are they Windows hosts? Are they Linux hosts? What are they communicating with? Are they communicating laterally in the environment? Are they beaconing out to something on the internet, right? PRADS was how we did that. Now it's time for us to move to our next step, which is let's take all these big PCAPs. Remember, like I said, you might go to a customer and tell them to record 5 minutes of network traffic every hour, right? So at 2 p.m., 5 minutes, at 3 p.m., 5 minutes, at 4 p.m., 5 minutes. On a small subnet of a couple of hundred users, that could be 20, 30 gigabytes of PCAP files. So you've got these massive PCAP files that are each like 5 and 6 gig each that you need to go through. And this is why I was having this conversation with somebody and he kept asking me, like, why would you use such an old tool? And I just kept saying, well, it's an oldie but goodie. I mean, there really aren't that many things that allow you to sift through this way. Now, can you do this with other tools? Can you use Logarithm and Splunk and all those types of things? The answer is yes, you can. The answer is yes, you can. But when you're proactively looking around networks, you may find yourself physically going to other subnets and then having to parse PCAP files while you're there doing like network troubleshooting and potentially having to figure out, is there something malicious here that you weren't responding to a security event for? So the next deal that you're going to have with a lot of your security tools is ingest. And when you have to deal with that many really large PCAPs, you find it kind of difficult to parse really large PCAPs. Like when you say, hey, let me take 150 gigabytes of PCAP files and let's throw them into my analysis tool. Most tools really aren't designed for that, right? Again, because most people are working from a security event. That's not threat hunting, that's incident response. I'm talking about proactively looking through the network and we're threat hunting on the wire. So like I said, really large data sets where, unless you have other tools like Gulp or, specifically tools that are designed to deal with ingest large volumes of PCAPs, you're kind of stuck, right? So ChaosReader is a Perl script. It's ungodly old, but works well. It parses almost anything. So you can rip through a bunch of PCAP files and it'll break all these individual PCAP files into individual data streams sorted by source and destination IP address. So you can filter out all these individual PCAP files. You just could not do this with your regular laptop. You wouldn't want to do this, right? If you took an 8 gig PCAP file and then tried to open it up in Wireshark and then sort it down and save those individual PCAPs, you wouldn't do that with tons and tons and tons of PCAP files. So again, this is kind of one of those things, this is more of a practitioner's kind of thing. Like when you're doing the job, these are those kind of things you run into doing the work. How do I use ChaosReader? You see that I'm going to create a directory, and then I'm going to pull down that PCAP file, and I'm going to pull down the Perl script. It's beautiful that, it's just a regular command line Linux Perl script. So I run this Perl script against the PCAP or the folder of PCAPs, and it breaks all these files down into individual session files. So one IP address communicating with another IP address, that whole data stream is called a session. So it's really nice to rip through that. Now you're going to see it's going to create this massive folder of individual session files. Now what we can do is we can grep and go through all those individual session files. So I'm going to use some extended grep, and you're going to see that I'm going to sort for stuff and say, you know what, let me get the files that have these particular numbers in them, but don't have data. So that's what you're going to see me do. And then I'm going to write a loop to say, let's sort this data so that I get just the unique source IP, destination IP, and just the unique web URL that the traffic is going to. ChaosReader is actually designed to open up a web interface, and I'll show you that, but although it's command line network analysis, that's not really what the whole goal of this lesson is, but I'll definitely show it to you because it does do that too. Let's get in there and let's actually see what this looks like. So I'm logged in as just a regular user. I'm going to download these files and I'm going to actually run ChaosReader. So I created the directory. That's what this line was. Changed directory into that directory. Downloaded the PCAP file. So this is downloading the PCAP file. Then I downloaded ChaosReader, wget for webget. And now I'm going to run the script against that file. That's what's going on here. So I run the script against it, and now you see that it parses it into data streams. Here we go. So each individual stream, right? Stream number 34 is this IP address communicating with this IP address on these ports, right? So it's really, really nice. You can see, okay, this is an HTTP stream. Stream number 15 is this IP address communicating with this IP address, and it's HTTP, right? And you can see it does that for all the protocols. So every protocol, it's broken up into individual streams. Okay, now you'll see that it creates a web page. Now, just to give you guys an idea, you've got all these files in here. You've got the web pages, right? So every session is a web page, and then every session has its corresponding gzip file, GNU zip, right? GNU, glad it's not Unix. When you're seeing that, you're saying, oh, okay, he's got all of these individual files for every session. So the data of that stream as a PCAP file is saved as well for every individual stream. I did this for a really small PCAP just because these folders would be huge, right? And again, if you're doing this across lots and lots of PCAP files, at least for me, I find this to be really, really handy because, like I said, you can run it against a whole folder of PCAP files. Now, it's going to leave a file called index.txt. Now, when you read the index.txt file, I'm going to cat read the index.txt file, and you'll see that it breaks down the data. Here's the session number 36, right? It's this IP, this source port communicating with this IP, this destination port, and the protocol's DNS. It has a web page, right? Stream number 36 .domain for the type of traffic it is, .html because it's a web page. But do you see this line where it's got these double quotes? All the things that have double quotes are the actual data, the web page and the data. Maybe you just want the session information, the session number, the source IP, source port, destination IP, and destination port. Well, if you just wanted that, then what you could do is you could say, you know what? Why don't you not show me the fields that have these double quotes? So that's what's going on in your first command here. What you're saying is grep-v inverse grep. So remove these individual double quotes. That's what you're doing there. Don't show me anything that has a double quote. And now you just have individual sessions, session number 22, session number 23, session number 24. All those HTML and gzip files and .data files, all that stuff is gone, and you just have the session number, source IP, source port, destination IP, destination port. Now what you could do is you could say, you know what? I don't need to see all this byte data. Right? Maybe I don't want to see that. So what you could do is you could say, well, I only want to see session numbers and I want specific column numbers. Okay, so I want column 4, 5, and 6. awk is what's going to allow you to see column numbers. So in this case, you want 4, 5, and 6. Let me show you what I mean. Let's say you only wanted column 1, right? Column 1 is the source IP and the source port. Maybe you only want column 2, right? That's the direction. Maybe column 3, that's the destination IP and destination port. Well, now if I tell you that I want column 1, 2, 3, and column 4, now you see that I have the source port, source IP, source port, the direction, destination IP, and destination port. So that's what's going on when you're using awk. Awk is going to allow you to see what column number that you want. So 4, 5, and 6 is what got you these fields way over here on the right. Maybe you want to do that a little bit more and you want to sort those, and then you want to count them and then do a numeric sort, meaning I want to put just the highest number of these packets at the top. So I'm going to do the same thing with those fields on the far right, which are the type of traffic they are. Then I want to sort them by how many. Right, so 25 of these packets in this data stream were HTTP, 8 of them were ICMP. Now this is important, right, because maybe somebody's trying to tunnel traffic out of the network with ICMP. You might want to investigate that. Is it network troubleshooting? Is that why I'm seeing ICMP? Or, man, there's a whole lot of boot P in the network. Are people pulling down config files, right? Are people doing like wake on LAN, and then with that they're pulling down config files with boot P? Like, how exactly is that working, right? So as you look through the network, you start trying to say, okay, well, why is this type of traffic here? What is it? And then once we know what it is, then we can figure out, is it malicious or not, right? So that's kind of why you do this kind of stuff. People always ask me about the kind of programming that I do. And I read a lot of little scripts, just handy little things to say, like, tell me what's going on with something. For example, if I do an ls in here and I grep for session, right? You can see there's all these session files. Well, some of the session files have a .htm extension. Some of the session files have a gzip extension, right? There's a lot of stuff. Some of the session files have a data extension, right? So I probably want to look through these. So I'm going to do a quick for loop. So for I, so for every, for I in session, right? So for every line in these session files, so it's going to be a session file _00, and then it's going to have a number from 0 to 9, and then anything after that followed by period http.html. So for every line in these files that have the word session 00 anything followed by a period.html, I want you to say, for every one of these files, I want you to do something. So I want you to say do source IP, it's a variable, source IP equals this command, read the file. So cat $i. So for every one of these files, read the file. Then I want you to grep and look for the word HTTP. Okay, so grep those just for the word HTTP inside of the file. And then I want you to print column number 2. Column number 2 was that IP address. Remember that? But the IP address had a colon and then the source port number. So I want to cut on the colon. The delimiter -D is the colon. And I want field number 1, which is the IP address. Field number 2 is the port number. Then I want to turn around and do the same thing, this time for the destination IP. Destination IP is another variable. I'm going to say, hey, read the line, look for HTTP, but this time give me column number 4. And I want you to look for the delimiter, which is a colon, and give me field number 1. Finally, I'm going to say, you know what? Let me create a variable called host. I want you to read the line. I want you to look for the word host, right? And now I want you to sort -u. Sort -u removes the duplicates. It's a unique sort. Then I want you to replace, right? Stream editor, sed, replace, right? So S search for every time you have this word host, and then replace it with nothing and do it globally. That's what the G is for. Then I want you to print it out. So print out source IP, which is this guy here, with the arrow, then print out the destination IP, and then put an equal sign and make it equal the host, which is the web address that it's going to, and then keep doing that and keep uniquing them, removing the duplicates. So I'll throw this in like this, and when I run that, it gives me a unique list of every individual IP communicating with every individual IP, removing all the duplicates. And then for each one that it's communicating with, where is the web address that it's going to? For me, I use this like crazy. This is like needle in a haystack type stuff. You get so many data streams. It's so much easier to rip those suckers down into what are the unique IP to IP combinations. And for every single IP, what's the unique URL that it's going to? Then I can take those URLs and I can look them up in our threat databases. I can go to places like VirusTotal, right? And you can throw those URLs out there and say, hey, is this a URL that's bad? You can paste the URL in there and you can let him tell you, hey, we've seen this URL somewhere before. Hey, we haven't, right? So it's a real good way for you to do that. Now, like I said, ChaosReader has a web interface, even though the whole focus of this was command line hunting. So you can open this up and you can do this because ChaosReader builds a web interface. And now you can see for each unique IP going to its unique destination IP, you can open it up as a web page. And now here you can see the red is the client talking out, the blue is the response from the server, right? So you can see every single individual stream. And if you have a stream that's of interest, you can download the individual file itself of that stream as a PCAP, right? So that's what these are here, and you can download those. So for me, this is really, really good because remember, you're proactively looking around the network. So you don't know what you're looking, like you don't know what you don't know. Most of these people are looking at it from the standpoint of incident response. Something has alerted them. So because you got a security event, you already have a source IP and destination IP or a source URL or, something to look for. Does that make sense, guys? You already have something to look for, right? Most people who are threat hunting oftentimes threat hunt through log files, not so much through PCAPs, right? So you're going to find it's a lot easier to look for specific events in Splunk. I'm looking for invocations of PowerShell throughout the network. Okay, yeah, that's a great way to find PowerShell downloaders or lateral movement. That's a great way to find that kind of stuff. But if you're talking about network threat hunting and you're not at one of these large organizations that has flow data and all these really, really expensive tools, how do you do it, right? Now, again, guys, if you want, we'll come back and we'll do we'll do a course on really big tools like ArcSight, Alien Vault. If you want me to do that kind of stuff, I'll happily do that, right? But again, most of the people who use those types of tools use them in incident response, right? Can you do them with threat hunting? Can you use Tanium and Carbon Black and all that kind of stuff? Absolutely. But again, you're going to find the bulk of the people doing that oftentimes are doing queries on the endpoint, queries through log events, queries through security events, not really a lot of PCAP analysis. So again, that's the reason why I'm showing you guys this. Okay, so remember, like I said, your first step was get an idea of what's on the network. I use PRADS for that. Once I have an idea of what's on the network, now I can say, okay, the customer took a PCAP recording every 5 minutes, every hour for 5 minutes, for 24, for 48, 72 hours. Now I've got all these big files to go through. I run them through PRADS to get an idea of what's out there. Then I run them through ChaosReader and filter them down into data streams that I can individually look through. I like to find the unique combinations of IPs that are communicating and then try to figure out if any of those, what's unique about them. How many IPs are internal to internal IP communication? How much of that is happening? How many of these packets are internal to external communication? How many of them are beaconing to malicious URLs potentially? We'll look them up in VirusTotal or whatever our threat product is, right? Threat Stream, Threat Grid, Threat Connect, Threat Miner. There's 50 million of these different types of products where people can look that stuff up. Obviously, VirusTotal, but you've got to get a feel of what's in all these data streams. So first, get a feel of what's on the network. Then get a feel of the unique combinations of IP to IP communication and what URLs they're going to. That's what I use ChaosReader for. That's step 2. Step 3, that's what we're going to do in the next video, is we're going to start using T-Shark to record some PCAPs. We're going to start using T-Shark to write some individual filters for more granular searching within PCAPs, right? And then lastly, we can start running those to see if any of those flag with our IDS like Suricata or with something like Yara PCAP, okay? All right, so I'll see you in the next video where we're gonna do more T-Shark.